Okay, so today I'm going to show you how to host a web application completely for free. So let's get into it. So first thing you would need to actually get somebody to go to your website would be a domain. One kind of cheat way of doing it would be just register a .xyz domain because it's the cheapest, but that is not the intention of this video. So let's look into what other options you have. So the only free domain in the world, or one of the free domains in the world, I believe is TO domain. No, I'm thinking of the wrong one. So the only free domain in the world is .tk and some others that you can use. Personally, I would recommend, if you are actually making this into a hobby site that you want people to visit from Google or something, I would say to not use .tk as a domain name, because I know that Google personally ranks your site lower if it finds that you're using a free domain. So I would say just don't cheap out on the domain side. But yeah, I mean, this is the point of the tutorial, or the video. So I would say go with one of these. So there's .tk. The domain registration process is pretty easy, I believe. And this is the registrar for it. I keep forgetting it. It's not .to, it's .tk. So .tk domain, you can register one from here pretty easily, and then change the name servers to match whatever hosting service we're going to be using it for. So you can use that. You can do .cf, .ga, and GQ, I believe, are also free domains. So that is the domain part. There are a few other options. In the following examples, you will see that there's some web hosts that will give you a free subdomain in exchange of it being free, I guess, and you using their services. So that's the domain part. So if you didn't cheap out on your domain and you actually got a .com domain, and if you want it to be an actual project, we can move on to the next part of the project, which is the backend side of it. So there are a few options depending on how you are actually, on what framework you're creating it on. So there are, at this current point in time, I'm leaning, I'm a Django developer, but I'm leaning more and more in favor of using Next.js as a full stack application, because you can use different endpoints as different Lambda endpoints, and then different API endpoints, I mean. And then you can just serve up your application because until I think it's 1000 gigabytes or 1000 hours of Lambda execution time, Vercel will give it to you for free. So yeah, So the services you can use for hosting your backend are going to be dependent on what backend framework you're going to be using. But let's say, for example, you're going to be using Django. So there's Python Anywhere. So one way of doing it, which is probably the easiest way of doing it, would be go with a free instance of either Amazon EC2. So this one, I believe you get 750 hours for free per month for 12 months. And yeah, you can pretty much run a decently sized your hobbies website on this for free, because the cloud providers really want you to be locked into their ecosystem. There are other options, of course. So there's GCP, so that's from Google, and I believe it's called App Engine over there. So you can just find similar type of products. I believe with the App Engine for free, you get. I gotta check. Compute Engine. Oh, it's called Compute Engine, not App Engine, I guess. So you can get one E2 Micro. I'm not exactly sure what I only have experience with AWS, but you have 30 gigs of hard disk or SSD space, 5 gigs of monthly snapshots, and 1 gigabyte of bandwidth. It looks like that's pretty low. I don't think that's right. But yeah, so you can use that. There's also the product from, I believe, so there's GCP, Amazon, and what's the last one I'm thinking of? So the other alternatives to EC2, which I would say just go with EC2. Amazon is pretty much the de facto leader in cloud. You can, yeah, I believe all of these have a free tier where you can just get a small virtual server, and you can just host your Django application there. You can use the domain from the .tk that you got for free, or you can use one of the other alternatives I provided. And so yeah, this is one way of hosting your Django application, or any other application, as I say, because it's just a virtual server or a cloud server. The other way of hosting it would be if you go with serverless functions. So you can also, it's not just Flask or Fast API that you can host as a serverless function. I found out earlier, but apparently you can also host your Django application as a serverless framework, serverless function in AWS with Lambda. That was pretty new to me. I thought there would be the cold start times would be horrible and everything, but apparently it's it's actually used in production for some projects. Yeah, you can use this and you get 1 million requests free. I don't think you can, and that's per month. So I don't think with a hobby project you will actually exceed this amount. But yeah, do take care that this because you have to put in your billing information upfront. It might you might get charged extra if you get, I don't know, you get DDoSed and you didn't have anything to prevent it, or you get influx of users. But I think that is probably a good problem to have because if you have an influx of users, you probably can afford to pay for the Lambda fees there. Yeah, so, and the other cloud services also have their own thing. I believe for Google Cloud it's called, I'm forgetting it. It's some functions, cloud functions or something. I believe all of these probably have a free alternative. I know Google Cloud for sure has it. Functions. Oh yeah, they just call it cloud functions, as I said. And you get, for pricing, you get how much? Details. Why don't they just put the free time? Okay, so you get first 2 million actually here free. So I guess, but do take note that so the cold start times for GCP is much higher. It looks like from than Lambdas. So with Django being a bigger application, I would assume it would take even longer sometimes. So yeah, if you want, you can probably have a something running on cron. So you would keep triggering the Lambda, the cloud function on Google, so it would be warm for like 15 minutes. But that kind of defeats the whole purpose of serverless function, let's say. So yeah, that doesn't really make sense. The other options are this is not really what I would call free, but then again, I would not really call Google Cloud free. The other option is getting Digitalocean. So with Digitalocean, you get if you sign up using a code, you get, I believe it's $50 or $100 for about a month. With Vultr, it's the same. So with both of these, what you can do is you can create a Ubuntu server or a Linux, some flavor of Linux server, and you can just host your Django application over there. I don't really prefer doing it because then you have to kind of Dockerize your entire application. If you haven't done it yet, then you would have to, like, when the 3 months are over, you'll have to find another place, blah, blah, blah. It's probably a lot of work for just like a month of free time. So one of the other easiest ones I found is Vercel. There's essentially, it's only supposed to be for like static applications or applications that you can run as a serverless function, so similar to what you can do already with Lambdas. But one thing that's good about here is you can host both your backend and the front end in the same place. What I'm doing actually right now, which is why I prefer Next.js over Django right now, is you can host a full stack application in just one platform. You have a monorepo with both of the things, and yeah, it makes the development really easy. And also, when you just push the changes, it will automatically redeploy it. Your front end will be redeployed as well. It's very, I prefer it much more to how you have to do it with Django, even if you have a CI setup done already. So the limit for Vercel is, as I said, like 100 GB per GB hours. You have a smaller timeout function, so maybe it might not work, but I don't think you have, like, if your Django request is taking more than 5 seconds, I think it's probably your request is probably way too big. So yeah, with 100 GB hours, I think you can go for quite a bit. Also, it helps that you can also host your front end on the same site, so it makes, I guess you do have the vendor lock-in, but you can just take your application, and then if you find that your product is actually, or website is actually successful, you can just buy a hosting server hosting for like $5 on DigitalOcean, which is the one I would recommend if you are actually going with a paid route. So yeah, Vercel, there's Vercel, and if you're not sure how to actually, so I've given a lot of examples for how to host your application, like Django application, as a serverless function. But if you might be curious how you can actually do it, so there's a few examples. The one I personally prefer was this one, I believe. Yeah, so you need to add some configuration for Vercel or anything else. And for Amazon, AWS, I believe there's lots of examples, because AWS is probably the most used serverless thing. So you can follow probably this one for hosting your Django application as just a serverless function. I would probably say don't go that route, serverless. But as a beginner or like a hobby project, I don't think there's the cold start times and everything would be that big of a deal. So that's it for your server hosting. The next part, which most people don't really think about until they have a big problem on their hands. So image hosting. Image hosting. So you can, yeah, it's a very hard thing. If you see most of the sites online, they will be using some type of CDN. So let's say for this one, for example, let's just check the dev console. I have it on mobile for some reason. So this one, for example, this is coming from where's the images? This one. So yeah, this is coming from a CDN. So with image hosting, you will see that there's a lot of lots of sites that claim to be free, but the cost after a certain time would just jump to astronomical levels. So one way of hosting it yourself for free, it will take quite a bit of configuration, is just using this. So if you want to be vendor locked into AWS, you can just resize images using a Lambda function. So you will just call the Lambda function. It will take if you're already using an S3 bucket for hosting your image files, then it makes it much easier as well. Or even if you're using, let's say, a DigitalOcean Spaces is what they call it. You can also do that. You can also use this method. And I believe they have an easy way. I'm pretty sure they have like a default way how you can hyphen. So over here, no, this is the same thing again. But I think if you log in, if you create an account and log in, the default, like one of the example Lambda functions that Amazon provides you with is a image resizer, like an easy way of doing it. So you don't even need to think about it too much. So one of them is that. But if you want to make it less hassle-free, you can just sign up for one of the image posting services. But the issue I had with most of them is you have to. So let's say you have a application that I don't know, it's like a social media type of application, and you need to users can upload their photos, and your application will save it to some bucket, S3 bucket somewhere. So it can be either Django Spaces or AWS or GCP, anything. I'm just using S3 bucket as a very easily understood concept. But if you don't know what S3 buckets are, it's just think of it as an object storage place where you can store files for much cheaper than and it's much more accessible than if it was just as a in some server somewhere. So that's what S3 what I mean by S3. And the problem I had, so let's go back to the example of the profiles. So if I as a user can upload my files, then the Django application will save it first to local, and then it will go to the S3 bucket. But now if I want to use some third-party service for image, like dynamic resizing, so it makes it like, let's say you're on phone, you want to make the image much smaller so that extra space or like extra bandwidth is not consumed just because like you also don't want to be making like 5 different like image thumbnail sizes, like one for profile thumbnail, one for profile thumbnail small, and then blah blah blah. It makes it much harder. So one easy way of doing it would be to use some image CDN. But the issue then is you're saving your images to your S3 bucket, but then you also need the same image, but you want to be able to resize it somehow. With other web frameworks, there's like a kind of an easy way to just dynamically resize your image on every request, and it will be cached somehow with Express or yeah, there's several packages for JavaScript. For Django, it's kind of hard because it's blocking, so you can't just do 2 things at the same time, pretty much. So one request can only do one thing, which is like one downside of using Django, I guess. But yeah, you basically want your files, your images from S3, but you want them to be resized before they're sent to the client, right? So one good service I found for that is ImageKit. And one good thing is they also have their the pricing is free. So you have only 20 gigs of bandwidth, which is not a lot. But as a hobby project, I don't think you will be using much more than this per month. And if you resize your images very nicely, I guess, then I don't think you will be actually crossing this even if you have a lot of requests coming in for images. And also what happens is this will come with a cache header of, I think, forever. So if the user is just refreshing the same page over and over, they'll just use the cache on their local machine instead of using up the bandwidth from over here. And one good thing about this compared to others like image CDNs, there's other ones like Cloudinary, Serve. These were the ones I was using before. These also have a free tier. Cloudinary makes it very hard to know what is because it has these things called monthly credits, and there's like some it's very hard to understand kind of what the credits are compared to real life dollars, or how much exactly I can get. And also there's a limit on the number of transformations you can do, and a limit on the storage, and a limit on the bandwidth, and it's like combined limit. So if you use like 1 gig here, then it would mean like you only have 24 here, 24 here. So that's a pain in the ass, I'd say. But with something like ImageKit, which I've been using for my recent projects, you have a fixed bandwidth, but you can perform unlimited requests and unlimited image transformations. So they have some other advanced features like I'm not exactly, so like you can do, I don't know, like background removal, I guess, and tagging and stuff like that. But yeah, I don't think you'll be using that too much. And yeah, and if you get to the point where you're actually having so much requests, then I would say just switch over from this one and then just use something like CloudFront from AWS. Makes it much easier to cache, and you just use like a Lambda function to dynamically resize the image before you send it over to CloudFront, pretty much. So yeah, this is one of them. So Cloudinary, as I said, it is a free one, but yeah, it just makes it very complicated, and then the limits are way too much. The other one was Serve, but the original point still stands, where you will have a CDN, you will have all the S3 access and everything, but the storage is horrendous, like 0.5 gigs of storage. How much images are you going to host there? Like at this point, it's probably better to just host it on your server instance. So this is pretty good for if you have a small project, because this doesn't have a bandwidth cap, and it doesn't have any request cap as well. So compared to Cloudinary, is better, I guess, but the amount of storage you get is much lower. So those are the options for image CDNs. Now we move on to the front-end side. So some developers, I guess I'm looking at you, like to put everything in their Django application. They don't have a front end, like they don't have a separation of concern for their front end and back end. They're just using something like Jinja to dynamically serve the HTML based on the values they get from the database. But if you want a better, if you want a better way of doing things, I think it's best to just use a separation of concern for front end and back end. So in that case, if you're using something like Vue, React, Angular, I think there's support for all of these over here. So you can use something like Netlify. So if you're using Vue, React, or Angular, I think you could just use this one. Because if you're using just plain React, it's ultimately just JavaScript files. Like you can just send them over, and then everything will happen on the client, or whoever is requesting the page, they will their browser will do the calculations and everything. So you can use Netlify. There's also an option for Vercel. There's tons of options, to be honest. So you can also do like Netlify alternatives. I'm sure you can find like so many. You can probably also host it on GitHub, because ultimately you're just giving back just JavaScript files. So yeah. So front end for that is not that complicated, but let's say you're going with some server-side render framework. So I don't know, with Svelte, you could go with SvelteKit. So SvelteKit, there's also Next.js or Remix.js. So for these ones, you have to have a node process running server somewhere. So you can't just serve some JavaScript files and that's it. So you have to do actual calculation on a server somewhere. So for this one, I would probably recommend just going with the default one, which is Vercel. There's also Netlify functions that you can use with Next.js. There's actually a lot of options. So you can also use Next.js, or you can host it on the same from the first option that I guess, or the second topic we went to, where you're hosting for free hosting. You can just host it on the same server where you're hosting your Django application. You can just host your Next.js or SvelteKit, or I think it's Next.js for Vue. You can just host it there. And that's it for the front end side of things. And now finally, there's a database. So what do we do about the database? There's one option that's like a default option for most people, I guess. They just go with having a Postgres database in the same server as the server you're hosting Django on. It makes it much faster, I guess, to have the direct search queries and everything. But it does make your storage kind of limited. Also, having both things that is on the same server, it will limit the performance of the server. So if you get lots of requests, you're having to, so your Django app is also running, but it also, your Postgres app, let's say, is also running. So it will make your application a bit slower, I guess. But it's not that big of a deal for if you're just hosting it on a server. But let's say you're hosting it with the other example I gave you, which is using cloud functions or serverless functions. Then you cannot actually host your database because there is no database in a serverless function. So you do need to connect to a database, but it needs to be using a URL instead of just saying localhost colon 5432, like you would do if you were running it in your local or in a server somewhere. So for this, I would recommend, so there's a few options depending, this is something I found just pretty recently. So there's an option called Planet Scale. So that you can use this one for MySQL databases. So if you're used to MySQL instead of PostgreSQL, you can use this, and it has a free tier for 10 gigs of storage, which is pretty decent. You have 100 million reads, 10 million writes, and 3 branches per database. So branches, this is actually an option where you can scale out your database later on if you want to actually do it. You have a support for 1,000 connections compared to on your local, where you have I don't remember Postgres connection limits. I believe is 115. So yeah, so you can have much more connections because they are kind of they're doing it with a kind of serverless architecture. They have multiple nodes, even for the free tier. For the if you're actually paying it, I think you're gonna have much more nodes available to you. When you're picking this with serverless option, just make sure to have both of them in the same region. So if it's US, you just pick US for also Vercel and also here. The other option for database is of course PostgreSQL, but PostgreSQL is kind of hard. So one of the options would be just use RDS, because that's already included in the free tier. Just use RDS with the PostgreSQL, what's it called? PostgreSQL setup, I guess. So you can use different variations of RDS. You can just use Amazon RDS for PostgreSQL. So let's just take a look at that. And for, I am forgetting where it is exactly, but let's just see RDS Free Tier. So the RDS Free Tier is, you have 750 hours of RDS for a micro instance. You get 20 gigs of storage and 20 gigs of backup each month for 1 year. So this is one thing to take note of when you're using RDS. So it's only for 1 year, unlike the Lambda functions, which I believe are for forever. For GCP, you have the same thing, I believe, GCP free Postgres. You have something called Cloud SQL, and this one you'll be, I'm not sure how much you have on the free tier. Is it not included in Cloud? BigQuery, BigQuery, MySQL, that's the app warehouse. Huh, I guess they don't actually have it then. That's very weird. Yeah, I guess Google Cloud doesn't have it. The other options are also paid, so I guess you cannot really look into that. With DigitalOcean, they also have, because of the free credits thing, you can use the manage database option there. So there's a manage database option where you can just, so the manage database option costs you about, I think it's 15 is the lowest one. Yeah, it's 15. But if you already had the free credits, I guess why not use them here? You have different options as well. So you probably pick PostgreSQL as here. But the last and probably my favorite is Yugabyte. So this is a different flavor of PostgreSQL, but it's much more resilient, I think, from what I've seen, from what I've looked at it. Makes it very easy to scale, very resilient. You can scale it to multiple nodes. You can scale it to multiple regions as well. So if you want to learn more serverless kind of architectures, this is a very good way to do it. So yeah, these are some of the benefits, I guess, for Yugabyte. The thing I want to show though is Yugabyte Cloud. So you can host this on your local server, but then that kind of misses the point of having. Why would you have Yugabyte DB when you can just have PostgreSQL, which you're used to? So one way, which it makes it very easy, is you can just use it for free. So yeah, that's very good. So for free tier, I can't see. Okay, here. So for free tier, you get a community supported cluster. So not just one, you get a cluster of database. And I believe there's no cap on, let me see if there's a cap. Yugabyte DB Cloud. Oh, I see. I think over here is where it is. So this is the latest. Yeah, this is the latest one. So the free tier is not here. Yeah, this is not here. No, this is also September. Free. Oh yeah, so you don't really have a limit. I think the limit is actually like something like 30 gigs or something. I need to check it. So the limit is actually 10 gigs, it looks like, which is still which it seems lower than the AWS option, but you have 2 gigs of RAM, so it makes the database itself much faster. And you can just use use the link from Connect from over here, like so. You can just get the link from over here, and then you're good to go. Now you don't need to set up PostgreSQL on your local server. You don't need to set it up on some RDS something. Just do it here. You connect. You get the URL. You just connect it using Next.js, or just for Django, just use the database URL as this URL. And that is it for database. Yeah, I think that's it for the video then. If you think I missed something crucial to hosting your website for free, let me know. Plan to do more of these types of videos. And if you want me to kind of go through one of these examples where I completely host a web app for free using a custom domain and custom like Django service, which is actually performant, then let me know. And yeah, that's it. See ya next time. Bye.